Target and I was looking at cartridge razors and thinking, there's got to be a better way. This is ridiculous, this is expensive. And I hopped on YouTube and I found this guy. Little did I know he was an Oconomowoc native, even though he's living in Texas now for some reason. But
warmer weather.
yeah, well, that makes sense. And I drove past this shop pretty much every day as a Bayview guy. And we just started working together. And Mark and on Milwaukee.com have just launched a new website called Sharpologist.com, which is kind of like a manifestation of this conversation, except it's online. And Jess and her staff are fantastic.
Yay for Sarah and Ivy!
So if you haven't been here either for a haircut or a shave, you absolutely have to, because it is one of those like man experiences that will make you understand why your wives spend so much money on themselves. Instead you can spend it on yourself. So, and then through on Milwaukee.com, I've had an opportunity to get to know some of you guys, and I hope that we can continue to advocate and push for the cause that is old school shaving and grooming. So I'm delighted that everyone's here. I will be the guy who kind of goes like this if you just keep talking too long, but I bet you're right on task.
And I will be the girl that will help you if you need anything. Okay?
And this is my bowl from home. But that's really all I contributed. But thanks again, everyone, for coming. And I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm a little, for lack of a better word, speechless, I guess. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you to the State Barbershop and on Milwaukee and the Pfister and all the people who have decided to come hear me talk. I'm quite flattered. If I sound a little nervous and maybe a little unprepared, it's only because I'm nervous and maybe a little unprepared. I do kind of want to take a moment to gauge who I'm talking to, whether I'm going to be preaching to the choir, if you will, and yeah, be hailed, or maybe some people who aren't quite familiar with the topic at hand. So if I might ask, of the people here, is anyone using an electric razor? Okay, fine.
Because I have got this mole on my face that if I don't, I usually end up bleeding. So.
Okay, all right. Does anybody use something like a cartridge razor, like a Mach 3 or a Fusion regularly? Okay, a lot of people. All right. Anybody using canned shaving cream or canned shaving gel? Ooh, a few. Oh, we're going to change your mind. Oh, you're going to hear from me. Okay. And what kind of troubles have you been having with your shaves? Does anybody get a lot of razor burn? A few? Okay. How about nicks and cuts? Ooh, a few more? Okay. How many people just don't enjoy your shave? I'll help change your mind. One of the things that has really changed my life, really, truly, about shaving is the real joy that I can get from what normally would be a very mundane operation. Everybody pretty much shaves in the morning or whenever they do. Some hate it so much that they shave maybe once a week or whenever they have to get away with it. And with proper education and learning a proper skill set, you can discover that you won't mind shaving every day. In fact, you may look forward to shaving every day. I know I look forward to shaving every day. Andy, where are you? You look forward to shaving every day? The people that have really gotten into this has almost made it a hobby. It's not necessarily an expensive hobby even. You can do this very inexpensively. And in fact, if you're using say a Fusion right now, you're probably paying on the order of maybe $3 or so per cartridge. If I can get you interested in single blade shaving with a DE blade, they run less than 50 cents. Do the math. In fact, in bulk, you can get them for like under 20 cents. And usually your return on investment will happen in under a year. So there are multiple levels of shaving desires and outcomes here, but I'll be going through initially sort of the techniques and concepts that apply to shaving with whatever shaving system or paraphernalia you use. And then we'll take a pause and we'll talk about haircuts with Jess. And then I'll come back and I'll actually demonstrate a razor shave with traditional lather, with a single blade razor, just how quick, comfortable, and close it can be, and maybe get you thinking about trying a lot of this stuff yourself. So let's kind of talk about some of the tools of the trade. And the first being the razor that I'm sure you're all familiar with. Most of them have at least 2 blades in them, some 3, some 4, 5, 6, whatever they're up to now. And they all work on a principle supposedly called hysteresis. Now for the engineering inclined of you, you know hysteresis is actually a term related to magnetism. Well, somehow in the shaving world it attached itself to the term of the concept of one blade pulling a bit of hair out and the next blade cutting it off. Originally this was like the Atra stuff with 2 blades, and then they decided to go further with the Mach 3 and then 4 blades and then 5 blades. And really and truly those systems can work for a lot of people, even though it's expensive, but for many other people it can cause skin problems as well. I mean, it's working for a lot of people because they're still selling them. So there are those razors and blade cartridges. There's also an important part of that system, which is the pivot system, which is actually, in my view, the real reason people get better shaves with some of these multi-blade cartridges is not necessarily the blades themselves, but rather the pivot system that helps glide it over terrain of your face. But with a little skill, you can compensate for that and do it on your own. Particularly with a single blade razor, either a DE double-edged razor, or if you may think of some of the older generation Schick injectors maybe, or even a straight razor. They all can do the same or better work as long as you apply some techniques and apply some concepts and have a little skill about it. You can get an equal or better shave with a single blade than you can with a multi-blade razor. Another really important piece of gear for the traditional shaver is the shaving brush. The shaving brush hydrates the shaving cream or soap. It mixes very well, and it helps apply it to the face where each individual little bit of hair on the face gets nice and surrounded by lather, which may not necessarily happen if you're using a squeeze tube or particularly a canned product. I should mention that if you're using a canned product, all other things being equal, you are shaving with the worst possible product. And let me explain why. The product itself may give you a decent shave, an acceptable shave, but just think about this. The propellants that are used in the can will naturally dry out your skin. They'll create little pockets of air within the product. And the real heavy work, the heavy lifting, if you will, in shaving is done by water. So if you've prepared your face with water and then applied a foam, you're starting to displace that water already. So you're not really helping yourself. Then the manufacturer of the canned product will add additional ingredients to try and make up for the lack of lubrication from the lack of water. And all those products are typically petroleum based. So once again, you are displacing water even more. So you are putting something on your face that is a substitute for a substitute, and the more ingredients are touching your face, the more opportunities your face has of not agreeing with one of those ingredients. So if you happen to use a a product and your face is red afterward, guess what? You're probably allergic or at least sensitive to one of those ingredients. A traditional shave cream or soap has far fewer ingredients, far more natural ingredients. You do have to work a little at it in that you have to generate your own lather, but even that doesn't take too awful long, and I'll show you that later. So bear in mind that even coming away from this today, even if you decide that you don't want to go the brush and cream route, at least get a product, a shaving cream or a shaving gel from a squeeze tube instead of a pressurized can. Just that will help. I'd also like to talk a little about some of the techniques of shaving that you may not be aware of. Again, I like to think of shaving as a skill. It's a simple skill, it's not that difficult. Some people take longer to pick up than others, but that's like swimming or playing a musical instrument or riding a bike for that matter. Some people pick it up quicker than others. In my own case, I admit, it took me a while to really pick all this stuff up. In fact, part of the reason I started doing my videos is because I wanted to try and help other people get past the issues I had for a long time. And I hope I've been at least partially successful with that. But amongst those concepts I'd like to talk about, the first is knowing your face, getting to know your face, getting to know the growth patterns of your hair, typically called the grain. There are areas of your face that may grow hair in one direction and other areas of face that may grow in another direction. And understanding that pattern is pretty important, again, particularly if you're using a multi-blade cartridge. And I'll get into the reasons a little later during my shave, but basically it's really important at first to follow the grain of that hair, follow the pattern. And an easy way to do that is just let your hair grow out for a couple days, look at yourself in the mirror, give yourself a good critical look. You may want to use your hand in circular motions, go over your beard like this. In one direction, it'll feel more rough, and in the opposite direction, it may feel less rough. So again, you need to discover sort of like a golfer going to a new golf course, what the course is like. And if you need a little help with that, small plug, on sharpologist.com, at the bottom of the page, I do have some shaving resources, including 3 different facial maps that you can download and print, that you can use to sketch out your own beard grain pattern. And at least initially, when you start shaving traditionally, or at least trying to upgrade your shave a little bit, that can be very useful. Along with knowing the grain of your face, you'd also want to look at the facets, if you will, of your face. Think of your face like a diamond. What are the flat parts and what are the curved parts? Ideally, you want to shave in a fashion that you are doing mostly flat segments shaving and trying not to go around corners. Obviously, cartridge razors with pivots make that easier, but you will find you will still get a better shave if you follow the flat segments of your face. Typically, for me, for example, there's a segment from the upper cheek to the lower cheek, another segment from the lower cheek to the jaw, then from the jaw down to the mid-neck here, and then down, and again in different parts. You want to be aware of those and use that knowledge to shave those parts in specific orders. Another important, maybe the most important concept, particularly for people who are not really familiar with high-end shaving or didn't learn a whole lot about shaving, is the idea of beard reduction, in that you don't want to try and shave off all your stubble all at once. A lot of people will just grab a can of something, slap on some foam, take their razor and go against the grain, thinking that it'll be the quickest, easiest way to get the smoothest skin afterward. Nothing could be further than the truth, honestly. you would get much more damage to your face with razor burn and particularly the possibility of ingrown hairs that way. What you want to think of is reducing the stubble in stages, the most comfortable way possible, which is usually shaving with the grain at first, then going back and shaving across the grain at 90-degree angles, then maybe across the grain again from the other angle, from 180 degrees beyond that, even before you even try a against the grain pass. And some people just can't do against the grain. It does happen. But by the same token, a lot of people who think they have sensitive skin right now really don't. They have average, normal skin. It's just they don't use the correct technique and skill to do it properly. Another concept that is particularly important is the idea of pressure. You want to use as little pressure on the blade as possible to do that shave. I know you see on TV the male models, they'll take a razor and gouge in like this, and so wow, you know, got a nice clean track. But shaving with pressure will bend or bow the skin away from those flat points I was talking about earlier. So again, even though there are some cartridge razors with a pivot that will bend back and partly compensate for too much pressure, it only goes up to a certain point. Your best way is to use as absolutely little pressure on the skin as possible. If you've got a multi-blade cartridge, one easy way to do this is to simply hold it by the bottom of the razor. Just hold it at the tip, at the bottom. This forces you to use a very light pressure. And you will find, in many, many cases, you will get a better shave just by doing that. Another issue that's important to think about is the blade itself. Even if you use a multi-blade razor, there are certain brands of blades that are more friendly to your face, your individual face, than other brands. Gillette and a lot of the other companies, they engineer it very carefully to be useful for the average guy. Well, how many average guys are here right now? None of you are average, as far as they're concerned. So it pays to check out different brands of blades if you can. Now, if you're stuck in, say, a Fusion where there aren't any other brands except Gillette, you're stuck. But if you have another another razor where you can get different brands of blades, it really would help you to try a different brand to see what happens. I think you'll find that even in the cartridge world, you can get a better shave just by trying out different styles, because they're made to slightly different specifications. Single blade DE razors come in a huge variety of blade manufacturing tolerances, coatings, styles. I mean, they're all made engineering-wise to look the same physically, but under the hood, many are very different from each other. So if you're using a single blade razor or want to learn with a single blade razor, one of the things you should really do is to try a variety of different blades, and you will very soon discover some give you much better shaves and others give you not very good shaves at all, even though you might be using the same razor, the same techniques, the same lather in all other respects. Along with the cartridge, I guess I should also mention that those cartridges, depending on the manufacturer, those blades are set to a specific angle. Cartridge A might be set to a particular angle, and cartridge B might be set to another angle, and that in itself could be trouble for you. That same concept in a DE razor is actually something that you can use to your advantage. You can manipulate the angle of the razor with the angle of the blade with a DE razor, and be gentle in some parts that you need to be gentle on and less gentle in other parts that can take it. So that can be very useful indeed. Also useful particularly for the DE user, but also for a cartridge user as well, is to simply lock the wrist while you're shaving. That in itself prevents an arcing motion and gives you a more consistent line as you're shaving. Again, particularly important for a DE shaver. The cartridge pivots can partly compensate again for that kind of thing, but again, you don't want to depend on the cartridge too much. Give yourself a nice locked wrist, do these things very carefully, and you'll find yourself get a better shave. Post-shave, you want to try and use a product that takes care of your skin. You've just kind of removed the very top layer of skin in a way, so you want to be careful of how you treat it. In my particular opinion, aftershaves with high alcohol content is not your friend. Even though you may like the sting, your skin is telling you it doesn't like it for a reason. Over a long period of time, this can affect your skin quite a bit. If you happen to be in a very humid area, a very hot area, or you have very oily skin, yeah, a little alcohol is going to be okay. Along the same lines of maybe the amount of alcohol that's in witch hazel, which is maybe 13%. But anything beyond that is really unnecessary, in my opinion. And then from post-shave to pre-shave, let's talk a little bit about the beginning of the shave. You want to definitely keep your face wet and warm to prepare the stubble to be shaved. If you heat and wet your face, for example, for a good 3 minutes, that will saturate the skin. It will actually ease the hair follicle, probably the hair, slightly out of its follicle. It'll make the hair about 25% more pliable, and it will become easier to cut, particularly versus against the yank and hack multi-blade system. This way you get the same kind of effect, but it's much more natural, and as you finish the shave and everything retracts to normal, it retracts very slowly, gets back to a kind of a normality that is suitable rather than trying to rush things back. I do also want to finish by mentioning product availability. A lot of people, when they first get into particularly non-mass market shaving, have trouble finding products. There are various ways of getting products, even locally, at very different price points. For example, you can right now probably go to Walgreens or CVS and get yourself a boar brush, which is, they call it a natural hair brush, and for $8 and a couple dollars more for a puck of soap, and go to town. You probably won't be particularly successful at it, but it's a way to start cheap, kind of challenge yourself to see if this is really something for you. Then you can go up the scale from there. Obviously, some of the larger malls may have like a Body Shop or Crabtree and Evelyn. Each of those have some shaving materials that are actually pretty good. And then up the scale a little more are places like the Brass Rooster, which carry higher end products and higher performing products as well. Let me just go back very quickly. I'll talk about it a little more on my demonstration, but there are several different types of brushes for using on traditional lather. The least expensive and usually the least quality is called a boar, made by boar hair, sometimes called natural bristle. There are some very good boar brushes out there. It's just that they're not in mass market areas. You can also get synthetic brushes if you are a person of that style. And then the typical normal brush for shaving is usually made out of badger hair, and there are different grades of badger hair as well. And I'll get into that a little later. But at least I wanted to give you a sense of some of the tools that are necessary, a sense of some of the techniques that you can apply with almost any kind of product and get yourself a better shave, and then from there upgrade your shave even more to have something more pleasant and maybe something to look forward to instead of something that you cringe every week to get over with. So with that, I will stop for now, give us a break, and we'll have Jess do her thing.
I'm gonna be a few minutes, grab a beer, okay?
I think we should maybe do another